Jake Morrison sat in his chair and watched the alien delegates talk around the large table. The meeting room on the diplomatic ship Use Harmony was filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Some had 4 arms, others had scales instead of skin, and a few glowed with their own light. Jake had been dealing with these aliens for 15 years, and he was tired of their games. The Zalafi delegate, a tall purple creature with too many eyes, was speaking again. Its voice sounded like broken glass when it talked. Jake knew this alien looked down on humans like they were children playing with toys. The human colonies must be given up, the Zalafi said, its multiple eyes staring at Jake. Earth must prove it wants peace by giving away the outer worlds. Humans are too violent to control so much space. Jake felt his jaw tighten. Around the table, other alien delegates nodded their heads. The blue-skinned Corvani representative made clicking sounds that Jake knew meant agreement. The rock-like beings from the Crystalline Consortium stayed quiet, but their silence said enough. Captain Lisa Brooks stood behind Jake's chair. She was the military escort for this mission, and Jake could feel her getting angry too. Her hand moved closer to her weapon, but Jake gave her a small sign to stay calm. "Ambassador Morrison," said the vegan delegate, "a plant-like creature with leaves for hair. Surely you understand our concerns. Humans have only been in space for 200 years. Other species have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. We know better how to keep peace." Jake had heard this same argument countless times. It did not matter that humans had solved energy problems that stumped alien scientists for centuries. It did not matter that human engineers kept half the galaxy's technology working. It did not matter that human doctors had cured diseases that killed millions of aliens every year. To these creatures, humans would always be the new kids who did not belong. "Let me make sure I understand," Jake said, his voice very calm. "You want Earth to give up colonies that we built with our own hands. You want us to prove we are peaceful by giving you control over worlds where millions of humans live and work." The Zalafi delegate made a sound like laughing. "Yes, exactly. This is how civilized species behave. You must show trust before you can be trusted." Jake looked around the table at faces that showed no respect for humanity. These aliens had been playing this game for decades. They took credit for human inventions. They used human labor to fix their broken systems. They bought human goods at cheap prices and sold them across the galaxy for huge profits. But they never treated humans as equals. Dr. Amy Foster, Jake's science advisor, leaned forward. She had been quiet during most of the meeting, but now her face was red with anger. "What about the quantum tunneling drives?" she asked. "Human engineers designed those. What about the new medical scanners that saved thousands of Corvani lives last year? Humans built those too." The Corvani delegate made more clicking sounds. "Your species helped, yes. But these were group projects. Many species worked together." Amy's mouth fell open. Jake had watched her team work day and night for months to solve the quantum drive problem. Alien scientists had given up on it years ago. But now the Corvani was acting like humans had just helped a little bit. "Group projects," Jake repeated slowly. He felt something cold growing in his chest. It was not anger anymore. It was something much more dangerous. Captain Brooks stepped closer to Jake's chair. She had been watching the aliens carefully throughout the meeting. As a military officer, she knew how to read people in a fight. These aliens were not just dismissing humans. They were planning something bigger. "There is one more thing," the Zalafi delegate said, all of its eyes focusing on Jake. "The Galactic Council has decided that humans need supervision. A council of experienced species will oversee all human activities in space. This will help humans learn proper behavior." The room went completely quiet. Jake felt every muscle in his body tense up. Behind him, Captain Brooks made a small sound that might have been a growl. "Supervision," Jake said. The word tasted bad in his mouth. Yes, the Zalathi continued, looking pleased with itself. The Zalathi Empire will lead this council. We have the most experience with managing younger species. Think of it as schooling for humans. Jake looked at Dr. Foster. Her face had gone from red to white. Captain Brooks was now gripping her weapon, waiting for orders. Around the table, alien delegates watched Jake like they were waiting for him to explode in anger. But Jake did not explode. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone in the room. He smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that predators show right before they attack. Jake stood up slowly, straightening his uniform jacket. When he spoke, his voice was perfectly calm and controlled. No, he said. The simple word hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. The Zalathi delegate blinked all of its eyes at once. Excuse me. I said no, Jake repeated. Humanity rejects your proposal. We reject your supervision. We reject your demands for our colonies. He paused and looked at each alien face around the table. In fact, we reject all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council, effective immediately. Now the aliens looked confused and worried. This was not how these meetings usually went. Humans always argued, got upset, but eventually agreed to whatever the aliens wanted. You cannot be serious, the Corvani delegate clicked. Humans need the galaxy. You cannot survive alone. Jake's smile grew wider and much more frightening. Watch us. He turned to Captain Brooks. Signal the fleet. We are leaving. Permanently. Captain. Brooks nodded and spoke into her communication device. All ships, this is Harmony Command. Execute departure protocol immediately. The aliens around the table started talking all at once, their voices mixing into a loud mess of panic and confusion. But Jake was already walking toward the door, followed by Dr. Foster and Captain Brooks. Wait, the Zalathi delegate called out. You cannot leave like this. There must be discussion. There must be negotiation. Jake stopped at the door and turned around one last time. When he spoke, his voice was ice cold. The time for discussion ended when you decided to treat us like children. The time for negotiation ended when you tried to steal our colonies. Humanity is done being patient with species that cannot show basic respect. He walked out of the room, leaving behind a table full of aliens who were just beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. Outside in the corridor, Captain Brooks was already receiving reports from the human fleet. All ships report ready for departure, Ambassador. Good, Jake said. Set course for human space. And Lisa? Yes, sir. Activate protocol silent running. It is time to show the galaxy what happens when they push humans too far. As the human ships turned away from the meeting point and jumped into hyperspace, the aliens were left floating in space, trying to figure out what had just happened. They would spend the next few months learning that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake they could possibly make. 3 months had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of that meeting room. Admiral Carl Hayes stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the last human transport ship disappear into hyperspace. The evacuation of the outer colonies was almost complete. Sir, his communication officer called out. We are getting another message from the Galactic Council. They want to talk. Carl shook his head. Same response as always. Tell them diplomatic relations are terminated permanently. Then cut the channel. The young officer nodded and sent the message. It was the 10th time this week that aliens had tried to contact them. At first, the aliens had been angry. Then they became worried. Now they sounded desperate. Dr. Amy Foster walked onto the bridge, carrying a datapad. Her face looked tired but satisfied. The last of the monitoring stations have been shut down, she reported. All human technology in alien space is now offline. Carl smiled. Amy and her team had been working around the clock for months. They had built secret shut-off switches into every piece of human technology sold to alien species. The aliens had no idea that humans could turn off their own inventions from thousands of light years away. How are they handling it? Carl asked. Amy looked at her data pad. Not well. The Corvani quantum communication network crashed completely yesterday. The Vegan Republic's food distribution system failed this morning. The Crystalline Consortium's mining robots stopped working 3 days ago. Carl felt a cold satisfaction. For decades, humans had fixed alien problems, built alien machines, and solved alien puzzles. The aliens had taken credit for human work and treated humans like servants. Now they were learning what happened when the servants disappeared. On the view screen, Carl could see the edge of human space. Behind them lay the galaxy they had left behind. Ahead lay the outer rim, where humans were building something new. Something the aliens could never imagine. Captain Lisa Brooks appeared on the communication screen from her ship. Admiral, we have completed the withdrawal from Sector 7. All human personnel have been evacuated. All human equipment has been removed or destroyed. Excellent work, Lisa, Carl replied. Any alien interference? Lisa shook her head. They tried to stop us at first. The Zealothi sent 3 ships to block our transport convoy. But when we showed them our new defensive systems, they backed off quickly. Carl remembered that encounter. The Zealothi had expected to face the same human ships they had always known. Instead, they found vessels equipped with weapons and shields that should not have existed. The human ships had disabled the Zealothi. Vessels without firing a single shot, using technology that the aliens could not understand. Dr. Foster pulled up another screen on her data pad. I have the latest reports from our intelligence network. The alien governments are starting to panic. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting yesterday. What did they decide? Carl asked. Nothing, Amy replied with a small smile. They spent 6 hours arguing about whose fault it was. The Zealothi are blaming the Corvani for being too harsh with humans. The Corvani are blaming the vegans for not offering better trade deals. Everyone is pointing fingers at everyone else. Carl was not surprised. The aliens had always been good at working together when it meant controlling humans. But when real problems appeared, they fell apart quickly. A new officer approached Carl's command chair. Lieutenant Commander Beth Stone had been leading the evacuation fleets for weeks. She looked exhausted but determined. Admiral, she said, we have a problem. The human colonies in the Centauri system are being threatened. The local alien government says they will not let our people leave. Carl's expression turned hard. Which government? The Mantis Collective, Beth replied. They claim the human workers are too important to their economy. They are demanding we continue providing technical support, or they will not release our people. Carl was quiet for a moment. Then he turned to his tactical officer. Send a message to the Mantis Collective. Tell them they have 24 hours to release all human personnel. If they refuse, we will come and take our people back. The tactical officer looked nervous. Sir, the Mantis have a large fleet. If we fight them, it could start a war. Carl's smile was not pleasant. Let them start a war. They will not like how it ends. Amy stepped closer to Carl. Are you sure about this? Once we use our full military capabilities, there will be no hiding what we can do. Good, Carl replied. It is time the galaxy learned that humans are not helpless victims. We have been holding back for too long. 20 hours later, a single human ship appeared at the edge of the Centauri system. The Mantis Collective had assembled 50 warships to stop it. The alien commanders were confident that one human ship could not defeat their entire fleet. They were wrong. The human ship, commanded by Captain Sam Turner, activated systems that the Mantis had never seen before. Energy weapons that could slice through their strongest armor like paper. shields that absorbed their most powerful attacks without taking damage, electronic warfare systems that turned their own ships against each other. In less than 30 minutes, the entire Mantis fleet was disabled. Not destroyed, because humans did not want to kill anyone, but completely helpless, floating in space. With dead engines and useless weapons. Captain Turner sent a simple message to the Mantis homeworld. Release our people now. The Mantis government released every human in their territory within 6 hours. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. Alien governments that had been planning to pressure human colonies suddenly changed their minds. The species that had always seen humans as weak and primitive now faced a terrifying truth. Humans had been hiding their real strength for decades. In the Outer Rim, Admiral Carl Hayes received reports from across human space. The evacuation was complete. Every human colony, every human worker, every human family had been brought home safely. More importantly, they had brought with them every piece of human technology, every scientific discovery, and every innovation that had been keeping alien civilizations running. Dr. Amy Foster stood beside him, watching the data streams flow across their screens. The alien economies are collapsing faster than we predicted, she said. The Corvani stock market crashed yesterday. The vegan republic is facing food riots. 3 minor species have already declared bankruptcy. Carl nodded. And it will get worse. They built their entire civilization on the foundation of human work. Now that foundation is gone. On the main screen, they could see the construction sites where humans were building their new colonies. Massive space stations that would make them completely independent of alien trade. Research facilities where human scientists could work without alien interference. Shipyards where they were building vessels that would make their current fleet look like toys. Sir, the communication officer called out. We are receiving a priority message from Earth. President Tony Adams wants to speak with you. Carl accepted the connection. President Adams appeared on the screen, looking serious but satisfied. Admiral Hayes, the president said, I want to congratulate you on a job well done. The evacuation is complete, and our new colonies are ahead of schedule. How are our alien friends handling their new situation? Carl smiled. About as well as you would expect, Mr. President. They are starting to understand that insulting humans was not their smartest decision. Good, President Adams replied. Because this is just the beginning. We have spent too many years being patient with species that treated us like children. Now we will show them what humans can really do when we stop holding back. As the communication ended, Carl looked out at the stars of the Outer Rim. Somewhere behind them, alien civilizations were struggling to survive without human help. Somewhere ahead, humanity was building a future that would be entirely their own. The galaxy had made a choice when they decided humans were not worth respecting. Now they would live with the consequences of that choice for a very long time. Commander Paul Wright crouched behind a broken wall on the dead planet of Zarian Prime. His stealth suit made him invisible to most sensors, but he still moved carefully. The Corvani research station ahead was supposed to be empty, but Paul had learned not to trust alien reports. Ghost team to base, he whispered into his communicator. Target is in sight. Beginning reconnaissance. 6 months had passed since humans cut all contact with the galaxy. Paul's job was to find out what the aliens were really doing. What he had discovered was worse than anyone expected. Through his scope, Paul watched Corvani scientists working frantically in their laboratory. They were trying to rebuild human technology from broken pieces, but they clearly had no idea what they were doing. Sparks flew from their equipment every few minutes, and Paul could hear explosions even through the station's walls. Base, this is Ghost Team, Paul reported. The Corvani are trying to reverse engineer our quantum drives. They are failing badly. Dr. Helen Carter's voice came through his earpiece. How badly? Paul watched another explosion rock the research station. Let me put it this way. If they keep this up, they might blow up the entire planet. Back on the human command ship, Dr. Carter shook her head as she listened to Paul's report. She was humanity's top expert on alien technology, and she had been studying intelligence reports for weeks. The picture they painted was both amazing and terrifying. "Admiral Hayes," she called out, "you need to see this." Admiral Carl Hayes walked over to Helen's workstation. She had screens showing data from across the galaxy, all of it painted the same picture. "The aliens are completely lost without us," Helen explained. "Look at this report from the vegan system. Their agricultural computers have been down for 2 weeks. Their crops are dying because they cannot figure out how to restart the irrigation systems." Carl studied the data. "Irrigation systems we designed." "Exactly." Helen nodded. "And here, the Crystalline Consortium's mining operations. They are running their equipment at dangerous levels because they do not understand the safety protocols. 3 mines have already collapsed." Carl felt a mix of satisfaction and worry. He was glad the aliens were learning they did humans. But he was also concerned about what desperate aliens might do. "There is more," Helen continued. "Intelligence reports show the aliens are forming a joint task force. They are calling it the Technology Recovery Initiative. Their goal is to break into human space and steal our technology." Before Carl could respond, his communication officer called out, "Admiral, we have a priority alert from the border." "Commander, Wright is reporting enemy movement." Paul's voice came through the speakers, urgent but controlled. "Base, this is Ghost Team. I have eyes on a mixed alien fleet approaching the border. 12 ships, multiple species. They are not sending any messages." Carl moved to the tactical display. The alien fleet was small but well armed. More importantly, it included ships from species that usually hated each other. The fact that they were working together showed how desperate they had become. "Paul, continue monitoring," Carl ordered. "Do not engage unless they cross the border." "Understood." "Sir," Paul replied. Carl turned to his staff. "Alert all border stations. This might be a test to see how we respond." The alien fleet stopped just outside human space and began scanning. They were looking for weaknesses in human defenses. What they found instead was technology that should not have existed. Captain Sam Turner commanded the Border Defense Station. He watched the alien ships on his screens and smiled. The aliens thought they were being clever, but human sensors could see everything they were doing. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the alien fleet is launching probe drones. They are trying to map our defensive positions." Sam shook his head. "Let them try. Activate the ghost field." The ghost field was one of humanity's newest inventions. It created false sensor readings that made one ship look like 100, or made 100 ships invisible. The alien probes immediately became confused, sending back data that made no sense. On the lead alien ship, the Zalafi commander stared at his screens in frustration. "This is impossible," he hissed. "The readings keep changing. First they show no defenses, then they show massive fleets." The Corvini science officer clicked nervously. "Commander, I recommend we withdraw. These readings suggest the humans have developed technology we do not understand." But the Zalafi commander was too proud to retreat. "Nonsense. Humans are primitives. They are probably just using some kind of electronic tricks." He ordered his fleet to cross the border. That was a mistake. The moment the alien ships entered human space, they found themselves surrounded. Not by the small defense station they expected, but by an entire battle fleet that had appeared from nowhere. Captain Sam Turner opened a communication channel to the alien commander. "You are in violation of human space. You have 30 seconds to withdraw, or we will disable your ships." The Zalathi commander laughed. 12 human ships against 12 alien ships? We have better weapons and stronger shields. You cannot defeat us. Sam's smile was cold. We are not trying to defeat you. We are trying to educate you. The human ships opened fire, but not with weapons the aliens recognized. Instead of trying to destroy the alien vessels, the humans used precision energy beams to target specific systems. Engines shut down without exploding. Weapons became useless without being destroyed. Life support continued working, but everything else stopped. In less than 5 minutes, the entire alien fleet was floating helplessly in space. Impossible, the Zalathi commander whispered. How did they do that? The Corvani science officer was frantically studying his sensor readings. Commander, their weapons are using principles we do not understand. They are targeting our systems at the molecular level. Sam Turner's voice came through their speakers again. Your ships will be towed back to the border. Tell your governments that human space is now permanently closed to all alien vessels. Any future violations will result in the permanent confiscation of your ships. As the alien fleet was dragged back across the border by human tow vessels, word of the encounter spread across the galaxy. The aliens had sent their best ships with their best crews, and the humans had defeated them without breaking a sweat. Dr. Helen Carter studied the battle reports with growing amazement. Carl, we need to talk about what just happened. Admiral Hayes joined her at the analysis station. What did you find? The weapons our ships used, Helen said. They are based on technology that is at least 50 years ahead of anything the aliens have. Maybe 100 years ahead. Carl was quiet for a moment. Are you saying our people have been developing this technology in secret? I am saying our people have been preparing for this day for a very long time, Helen replied. Look at these engineering reports. The molecular disruptors, the ghost fields, the quantum armor. We have been building a completely new type of military technology. Carl realized the truth. While humans had been playing nice with the aliens, human scientists and engineers had been quietly preparing for the day when diplomacy would fail. They had studied every piece of alien technology, found its weaknesses, and built weapons designed to exploit those weaknesses. How long have we been planning this? Carl asked. Helen smiled. Since the day we first met the aliens and they treated us like children. Humanity has been preparing for independence for decades. We just never told anyone. Across the galaxy, alien governments were receiving reports of the border incident. The message was clear. Humans were no longer the weak species that could be pushed around. They had become something new, something dangerous. In the Galactic Council chambers, delegates from dozens of species gathered for an emergency session. For the first time in years, they were not arguing about how to control humans. They were arguing about how to survive without them. We must find a way to make peace, the vegan delegate said. Our worlds are dying without human technology. Peace? The Zalathi representative hissed. They humiliated our fleet. They must be punished. With what? Asked the Corvani delegate. Our weapons do not work against their defenses. Our ships cannot match their speed. Our technology is decades behind theirs. The room fell silent as the truth sank in. The species that had once looked down on humans now faced a terrifying reality. Humanity had become the most powerful civilization in the galaxy, and they were completely alone in the darkness of space. The age of human weakness was over. The age of human independence had begun. President Tony Adams stood at the window of his office, looking out at the construction sites orbiting Earth. Massive space stations were taking shape, each one larger than most alien cities. The sight filled him with pride, but also with sadness. For what could have been? Sir, his aide called from the doorway. The final evacuation reports are ready. Tony turned away from the window and walked to his desk. The reports showed the complete withdrawal of humanity from galactic civilization. Every human colony had been relocated to the outer rim. every human worker had been brought home. Every piece of human technology had been removed from alien space. "How many people did we relocate?" Tony asked. 200 million, his aide replied, from over 300 worlds. It was the largest population movement in galactic history. Tony nodded. It had been an incredible achievement, but the cost was enormous. Families had been forced to leave homes they had built over generations. Businesses had been abandoned. Entire cities had been dismantled and moved. Lieutenant Commander Beth Stone appeared on the communication screen. She looked tired but determined. For months, she had been leading the evacuation fleets, making sure every human made it to safety. "Mr. President," Beth said, "I have the final numbers from the evacuation. We have successfully removed all human infrastructure from alien space. Every power station, every communication relay, every manufacturing facility. It is all gone." Tony felt a cold satisfaction. The aliens had taken human work for granted for so long. Now they were learning what life was like without it. "What about the alien response?" Tony asked. Beth's expression grew serious. "They are not handling it well, sir. The Corvani homeworld lost power for 6 days when we shut down their fusion reactors. The Vegan Republic's transportation system collapsed completely. Their ships cannot navigate without our computer systems." Tony had expected this. Human engineers had built so much of the galaxy's infrastructure that removing it all at once was like pulling the foundation out from under a building. "There is more," Beth continued. "We are receiving reports of civil unrest on dozens of alien worlds. The Crystalline Consortium is facing revolution. 3 minor species have declared martial law to keep order." Tony was not surprised. When civilizations collapsed, people looked for someone to blame. The alien governments had spent decades telling their people that humans were primitive and weak. Now those same people were demanding to know why their advanced leaders could not fix simple problems without human help. Dr. Helen Carter joined the conversation from her research station. "Mr. President, we need to discuss the galactic internet situation." Tony knew this was coming. The galactic internet was the communication network that connected every civilized world. What most aliens did not know was that it ran entirely on human technology. "How long before it fails completely?" Tony asked. Helen checked her datapad. 3 days, maybe 4. "The quantum routing protocols are breaking down without human maintenance. When it goes down, interstellar communication will become almost impossible." Tony made his decision. "Shut it down." Helen nodded. "I will send the shutdown codes immediately." Across the galaxy, alien worlds suddenly found themselves cut off from each other. The Galactic Council could no longer coordinate their response to the human withdrawal. Trade networks collapsed overnight. Scientific research that depended on shared data came to a halt. On the Zelathi homeworld, the Emperor stared at his communication screens in disbelief. For the first time in 1,000 years, his empire could not talk to its colonies. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "We built the galactic internet. It is our technology." His science advisor looked uncomfortable. "Your Majesty, it appears the network was actually built by humans. We provided the funding and the infrastructure, but the actual technology was human-designed." The Emperor's rage was terrible to see. "You are telling me that primitives built our most important communication system?" "Yes, Your Majesty, and now they have turned it off." Similar conversations were happening on worlds across the galaxy. Alien leaders were discovering that their most essential systems had been built by the species they had dismissed as children. President Tony Adams received regular reports about the chaos spreading through alien space. But he was more interested in the reports from human space. The new colonies were thriving. Human scientists, freed from alien oversight, were making breakthrough discoveries every day. Human engineers were building machines that made their previous work look simple. "Sir, his military advisor said, "We have a problem. The aliens are trying to rebuild their communication network. If they succeed, they might be able to coordinate an attack against us." Tony considered this. How long would it take them? Our experts estimate at least 5 years, assuming they can figure out how our technology works. Tony smiled. They will not have 5 years. He activated a secure communication channel to Admiral Carl Hayes. "Admiral, it is time for the final phase." Carl's image appeared on the screen. "Are you sure, Mr. President? Once we do this, there will be no going back." "There is already no going back," Tony replied. "The aliens made their choice when they decided to treat us like servants. Now we make ours." Carl nodded. "Understood, sir." Initiating Project Clean Slate. Project Clean Slate was humanity's most secret plan. For years, human engineers had been building hidden devices throughout the galaxy. These devices were designed to destroy any technology that used human innovations. The aliens had always assumed they owned the technology they bought from humans. They were about to learn they were wrong. Dr. Amy Foster sat in her laboratory, watching the activation codes flow across her screen. Each code would destroy a piece of human technology in alien space. Power plants would shut down permanently. Computer systems would wipe themselves clean. Manufacturing equipment would become useless scrap metal. "Beginning activation sequence," Amy announced. Stage 1. Power generation systems. Across the galaxy, alien worlds went dark. The fusion reactors that humans had built to power alien cities simply stopped working. Not just stopped, but destroyed themselves so completely that they could never be repaired. Stage 2. Transportation systems. Alien ships found their engines failing. The quantum drives that humans had invented became inert chunks of metal. Entire fleets were stranded in space, unable to move or communicate. Stage 3. Manufacturing systems. The factories that built everything from alien clothing to alien weapons shut down forever. The assembly lines that had produced goods for thousands of years became silent. Stage 4. Medical systems. This was the cruelest cut. The medical scanners and surgical robots that had saved millions of alien lives stopped working. Hospitals across the galaxy found themselves unable to treat their patients. Stage 5. Agricultural systems. The farming equipment that fed billions of aliens died. The automated food distribution networks that prevented starvation collapsed. Worlds that had not grown their own food in centuries faced the prospect of famine. President Tony Adams watched the reports come in from across the galaxy. In less than 24 hours, alien civilization had been reduced to a pre-industrial level. They still had their original technology, but that technology was hundreds of years behind what they had grown used to. "Mr. President," his aide said quietly, "we are receiving thousands of distress calls from alien worlds. They are begging for help." Tony felt a moment of sympathy for the billions of innocent aliens who were suffering because of their leader's arrogance. But he pushed that feeling aside. This was war, and in war, there were always casualties. "Send the same message to all of them," Tony ordered. "Diplomatic relations with humanity have been permanently terminated. We suggest they contact their own governments for assistance." The message was clear. Humanity had given the galaxy a choice between respect and independence. The aliens had chosen to deny humans respect. Now they would live with the consequences of that choice. On the view screens, Tony could see the new human colonies growing stronger every day. Massive shipyards where humanity was building a fleet that would dwarf anything the galaxy had ever seen. Research stations where human scientists were developing technology that would make their current advantages look small. Manufacturing centers that would make humanity completely self-sufficient. The galaxy had treated humans like children who needed guidance. Now those children had grown up and moved out of the house. They were building their own future, and they were building it without any help from the parents who had never believed in them. The age of human dependence was over. The age of human dominance was just beginning. 1 year had passed since humanity severed all contact with the galaxy. Captain Steve Rogers stood on the bridge of the newest human warship, the UES Independence, watching the construction of humanity's greatest achievement. The outer rim was no longer empty space. It had become the heart of a new civilization. "Sir," his navigation officer called out, "we have another alien ship approaching the border, same as the others." Steve looked at the main screen. A single vegan Republic vessel was limping toward human space, its hull scarred and engines barely working. It was the 5th alien ship this week to come begging for help. "Standard response," Steve ordered. "Warning broadcast, then escort them back to the border." The communication officer sent the message that every alien ship received. "You are approaching human space. Diplomatic relations have been permanently terminated. Turn back immediately, or you will be escorted out." The alien ship did not turn back. Instead, it sent a desperate message. "Please, we need medical supplies. Our world is dying." "We will give you anything you want." Steve felt a moment of pity, but his orders were clear. "Launch escort drones. Make sure they get back to their own space safely." The alien ship was gently but firmly pushed back across the border. Steve watched it go, knowing it would join the hundreds of other alien vessels that had tried to reach human space over the past year. All of them had been turned away. General Mary Davis materialized on the communication screen from the main construction platform. She was overseeing the completion of humanity's new space habitats, massive structures that could house millions of people in complete comfort. "Steve," she said, "we just finished the last of the agricultural stations. Humanity is now completely self-sufficient. We do not need anything from the galaxy anymore." Steve smiled. The agricultural stations were marvels of human engineering. They could grow enough food to feed every human in space, using technology that was decades ahead of anything the aliens had ever developed. "How are the research projects coming along?" Steve asked. Mary's expression grew excited. "Better than we hoped. Dr. Foster's team just completed the prototype for the new faster-than-light drive. It is 10 times faster than anything we had before. And Dr. Carter's group has developed energy weapons that make our current systems look like toys." Steve was impressed but not surprised. Human scientists, freed from alien oversight and bureaucracy, were advancing at an incredible rate. Without aliens telling them what they could and could not research, human innovation had exploded. "There is more," Mary continued. "The new manufacturing centers are online. We can now build anything we need without importing a single component from alien space. Ships, weapons, computers, medical equipment. Everything." Steve nodded. This had been the goal from the beginning. Humanity had spent decades being dependent on alien goodwill for trade and resources. Now they were completely independent. President Jack Miller appeared on another screen. He had been elected 6 months ago on a platform of permanent separation from the galaxy. The human people had voted overwhelmingly to never again subject themselves to alien condescension. "Captain Rogers," President Miller said, "I wanted to personally thank you for your service on the border. Your crews have done an excellent job keeping alien ships out of our space." "Thank you, Mr. President," Steve replied. "Though I have too. Say, the aliens are getting more desperate. Some of their ships are barely holding together." President Miller's expression grew serious. "I know. We are receiving intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The situation is worse than we expected." Steve had heard some of those reports. The alien civilizations were collapsing faster than anyone had predicted. Without human technology, they were struggling to maintain even basic services. Some worlds had lost power completely. Others were facing food shortages. A few species were dealing with civil wars as their governments fell apart. "Mr. President," Steve said carefully, "some of my officers are asking if we should help. Not with technology or trade, but just with humanitarian aid. Medicine for the sick, food for the hungry." President Miller was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "No, Captain. I understand the impulse to help. Humans are naturally compassionate. But we tried helping for over a century, and all we got in return was disrespect and demands for more." Steve understood, but it still bothered him to watch alien civilians suffer for their leaders' mistakes. "Besides," President Miller continued, "helping them now would just teach them that they can abuse us and then come crying for help when things go wrong. They need to learn to solve their own problems." Dr. Helen Carter joined the conversation from her laboratory. She had been monitoring alien communications and tracking their attempts to rebuild their civilization. "Mr. President," she said, "I have the latest intelligence report. The Galactic Council officially dissolved yesterday. The member species could not agree on how to handle the crisis." President Miller was not surprised. "What about their attempts to rebuild human technology?" Helen shook her head. "Complete failure. They have been trying for a year to reverse engineer our quantum drives. The best they have managed is to blow up 3 research stations. They are decades away from understanding even our simplest innovations." Steve found this information both satisfying and sad. The aliens had always claimed to be more advanced than humans. Now they were proving they could not even copy human work, let alone improve on it. "There is something else," Helen continued. "We are detecting new political movements on several alien worlds. Groups that are calling for the overthrow of their current governments. They blame their leaders for losing humanity." President Miller leaned forward. "Revolutions?" "Yes, sir. The people on these worlds are angry that their leaders drove away the species that was keeping their civilization running. Some of them are demanding new governments that would try to make peace with humanity." Steve thought about this. Would we consider making peace if they changed their governments? President Miller's answer was immediate. "No, we gave them over a century to treat us with respect. They chose not to. Now they have to live with the consequences of that choice." The conversation was interrupted by an alert from the sensor station. "Sir, we have a large alien fleet approaching the border. Over 100 ships from multiple species." Steve moved to the tactical display. The fleet was impressive by alien standards, but it looked primitive compared to human technology. "Are they armed?" "Yes, sir." "It looks like a military formation." Steve smiled grimly. "They never learn, do they? Alert the defense fleet. Let us show them what happens when they try to threaten us." The human response was swift and overwhelming. Within minutes, 50 human warships appeared around the alien fleet. The aliens found themselves completely surrounded by vessels that were faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything they had ever seen. The lead alien ship sent a message. "We demand that humanity resume trade relations immediately. The galaxy cannot survive without human technology." Steve almost laughed. Even now, facing a superior force, the aliens were making demands instead of requests. "Respond to their demand," Steve ordered his communication officer. "Sir, what should I tell them?" Steve's smile was cold. "Tell them that humanity considered their demand carefully and decided to reject it, then escort them back to their own space." The alien fleet was gently but firmly removed from human territory. As they retreated, Steve could almost feel their frustration and desperation. President Miller reappeared on the screen. "Captain, I want you to send a message to every government in the galaxy. Make sure they all understand our position." "What should the message say, sir?" President Miller thought. For a moment. "Tell them this. Humanity spent over a century trying to be part of galactic civilization. We offered our knowledge, our labor, and our friendship. In return, we were treated like children and told we needed supervision. Now we have chosen a different path. We are building our own civilization, one where humans are respected and valued. The galaxy is welcome to do the same, but they will do it without us. The message was broadcast across the galaxy. On 1,000 worlds, alien leaders heard humanity's final word on the subject of diplomatic relations. There would be no reconciliation. There would be no return to the old ways. Humanity had moved on. Steve looked out at the human colonies spreading across the outer rim, cities floating in space, connected by transport networks that moved people and goods at incredible speeds. Research stations where human scientists were unlocking the secrets of the universe. Shipyards where humanity was building vessels that could travel to other galaxies if they chose. The species that had once dismissed humans as primitive now faced a future where humanity was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. And they faced that future alone, because they had chosen arrogance over respect. The galaxy had taught humanity an important lesson. Sometimes the only way to get respect was to stop asking for it and start demanding it. Now humanity was writing its own future among the stars, and that future was brighter than anything the galaxy had ever offered them. The age of human independence had become the age of human greatness. And it was only the beginning.